think about the mood. What are you trying to do with the music? Are you trying to calm somebody? Are you trying to motivate? Are you just trying to have a moment of joy? Because actually, forget everything else. Music is there to make us feel good. So I would say start small, but if nothing else, try and find that moment of joy. So it might be the song that you always used to sing together in the mornings, or whatever it might be. Find that song, and don't feel you've got to get through the whole song. It might be 30 seconds, it might be just the chorus, and it might just be you humming it. You don't have to sing it, or it could be popping it on a device and having a dance together. Try and be playful with music. Music is there. We are playful creatures, and music really invites playfulness, and I think that's something we lose a lot when dementia kicks in. We get very serious about things because it is a very serious and impactful condition, but the more we can hold on to play, the more we hold on to our internal selves. So I'd say be playful with music, and don't feel that you've got to be any kind of musical expert. We are all musical beings. We all have a relationship with it. So try and tune into that a little bit. So today we're thinking about wired for sound. So the fact that our brains and our bodies are inherently wired for music, and we're going to think a little bit about why and how we can all be tapping into that a bit more as we use music to care for somebody or to support ourselves. Then next week we're going to be thinking about tracks of my tears. So this will be focused on how music can help decrease mental and physical pain, anxiety, fatigue and depression, and what happens when you add a drop of music. What does it alleviate, and what does that bring about? Then the following weeks, this is Monday the 19th, our third session. We've called this My Life the Musical. This is about how our childhoods and our cultural and social associations form our own soundtracks to our lives and help us and the person we care for to reminisce and recall both positive and negative memories, because we don't want to shy away from that, but also how that helps to be in the here and now, thinking about what Sue was saying about communication. Music is that really, really important communication tool. And then our penultimate session we've called Band Camp, and I feel like I can talk about that having just come off Band Camp. Is about how collective music making and community, and how that makes it feel and what it does to our brains, and how we can then feel more connected to others. And then our final session on Monday the 3rd of July, day after Thank You Day, will be a real summary of everything that we've explored over the last 4 weeks, and your opportunity to use it as a bit of a pharmacy. Send us your questions, and for us to have a discussion with you about anything that's come up over the weeks, and also any burning questions you have, or anything you want to explore with music that Sue and I can help you with. And over the 5 weeks, I know Sue's going to talk about this too, is we would love to know about the music that matters to you. It might be a song that you turn to because it just makes you feel great, whatever the weather. It might be a song that you're finding at the moment is really working, that you're using with somebody that you're caring for. It might be a song that actually you just pour your heart out to because it gives you that release and that solace. We would love to know what those songs are, because at the end of the 5 weeks, we'd love to have compiled a Dementia Carers Count playlist that you've all been a part of, and where you'd like to share your stories about the music or the song that matters to you. We'd love to hear them and understand a bit more about why that music matters to you, because each story counts for us. So if you feel like you'd like to do that, you can drop it into the chat, but you can also email it to us in between sessions. But we'd love to make a playlist with you about the music that matters to you. I am a passionate believer, starting at the beginning, that we are absolutely inherently musical beings. So we start to develop our capacity to hear from about 18 weeks in the womb. And this is really important because this is when we start to experience the fundamentals, the building blocks of music. So if we just think about our mums and their bodies when they're carrying us, they have a gait. So they've got rhythm, they've got movement. We're already feeling movement. So it's already been built into us, as it were. But our mothers also have the fundamentals of rhythm, which is heartbeat, and we're so connected to that. And of course then we develop our own, so we've got that innate sense of rhythm and that sense of being propelled forward, that idea of movement. But then also there's the voice. So with voice comes melody, it comes communication in the form of verbal communication and musical melodic communication, but then communication with others, and that polyphony and that harmony and dissonance. So all these things that go into making music, whether it's dynamics, you know, the loud sounds of life, those quiet, precious moments, all of the elements of music are being sort of built into us, hardwired into us before we've even appeared. And of course, then when we're born, the first thing that we do is that big gasp of air, and then we're communicating musically with that enormous scream that we hope every baby makes when they arrive. And that's really important, because that's an instant bonding moment. And of course, with mums and babies, you know, they don't develop language together, they develop a musical conversation. And this is something that's explored a lot in music therapy training, this idea that we're communicating through music before we've even developed a verbal capacity. It's our pre-speech. It's there. It's what we do. And so if we fast forward to the end of life, it's also one of the last senses to leave us, and which is why we have to be very, very sensitive in somebody's final moments about the sound world we're creating for them, what we're saying, how we're communicating. And whether that's with music or not with music, but also the tone of our voices, as well as the things that we're saying. So really, music is with us throughout our lives, but, you know, before and right through to the end. But also it's that legacy piece. It's something we can pass on to somebody when we're no longer here. So that's not the most in-depth explanation, because we've got an eye on the time, but you can get a sense of not only is music in us, in our brains, but it's also in our bodies. We feel it. Our cells are hardwired for it. You know, our organs are hardwired for it. So that's why we felt that was a really good starting point for today's session.
When I was listening to you talking about the heartbeat being a rhythm and the walking being the rhythm and so on, and then the intonation of voice, it's certainly the case, isn't it, is that children, even before they can understand everything that we say verbally, they can certainly understand our tone, and whether we're sort of in a good mood, an unhappy mood, whether we're dissatisfied with something someone's done. And if even, I take myself, I don't speak many languages, and if I went to a foreign country and I couldn't speak the language, I'd probably get an idea of the thoughts and feelings of someone by the intonation of their voice. That musical pattern is so important for us to interpret things around us.
Yeah, and that nuance in that communication, you can see how that gets reflected in music, in the phrasing, and the voicing of, you know, how instruments are fitted together. And so you're absolutely right. You don't have to always be able to understand everything literally to get the feeling. And I think that's what's so important with music and dementia, that it's often said, isn't it, Sue, correct me if I get this wrong, it's not what you say, it's how you made somebody feel. And I think music gets you straight to that.
Yeah, and it can change the tone of the environment and how the environment feels at that moment for someone, and can stay with you for quite some time after. The last few days I've been working, sort of doing some work looking at people's experience with dementia, and there was just to tell this one story, there was a gentleman who if you kind of take a sort of surface look, he wasn't very engaged, he had his head down, he wasn't really keeping an eye on the environment. And then some music came on that the carers knew he really loved. It was Queen, actually. And immediately, he still wasn't physically able to move much, but you could see the eyes, you could see the face, and the whole environment changed for him as the music came on. It wasn't a big change, but it was certainly a change that said that his well-being was being improved massively.
Yeah, and that is really important, because actually we sort of move to the brain there at that point. What is going on? So there's some fantastic stuff online that people can go and have a look at, and we'll put some links, won't we, Sue? We can share some links, but it's really helpful to have a sense of what is happening in the brain, because that is how somebody's response and reaction to music can be dictated. Of course, as Sue was saying, there's all other elements to the response as well, but it's really good to have an understanding of someone's dementia and how that might be, how the experience of music might then be impacted by that. So for example, there was a lady I met at a conference once, and she had PCA dementia, so dementia that affected the back of her brain. And she said, oh, you know, I'm really heartbroken because I can't enjoy music anymore. And I said, well, what are you trying to do? And she said, she explained her dementia to me. And I said, well, hang on a minute. You're trying to do far too much with it. She wanted to sit down and listen to a whole album. I said, start with like the smallest amount of music and build up from there. Thinking about that point you just made, Sue, about it can be the smallest gestures. I said, go away and just start with like 10 seconds, 15 seconds of a song or a piece of music you really love. You've got a sort of memory of in your mind, and make sure that you've got the setting and the environment right for you. So the right volume, you know, no other distractions going on, and incrementally build up to what's tolerable for you. And sort of coincidentally, a few months later, I saw her at another dementia conference, and she came running over to me and she said, I've done it. I was trying to remember what, and then I was like, oh, okay. And then I was trying not to have any expectation. And she said, I've done it. I can listen to a whole song. And it's just, it's changed my day. I now know how I can manage to have my connection with music. I know what ingredients are needed, and I know what music's tolerable for me. She'd really gone away and thought about it. So, you know, a small, you know, we think of a song as nothing sometimes, but it can really make all the difference.
And almost what you're saying there, there's a sweet spot. And to try and do too much at once could just become intolerable, I think was the word you said. And whereas if you start small, you know, if you've used a 30-second snippet of music, but that's worked for the person, that's the sweet spot for that moment. And you can either build or you can stick with that. There's no sense of pass or failure depending on how much or time that you've used with the music.
No, exactly. And it's really important, you know, I could talk you through all the different areas of the brain and how they're affected, but, you know, think of the amygdala. You know, this is where we have our emotional responses and reactions to music. If that's been impacted by somebody's dementia, then they may not have an emotional response. It might be a more functional, and that means that you might be able to use music in a much more functional way with them in terms of supporting mobility or encouraging them to do movement and exercise. So it's really important to have this sort of sense of, what is this person's dementia doing for them, knowing that it's not linear and it might change day by day, but also what purpose, what function can the music serve for them? And the thing that I always say about music in the brain is that no matter what's happening with the dementia, music's this mercurial thing, and it can find its way through the brain. So if it finds blocked neural pathways, then it will find another way through, because we process music in the whole brain and not just one region. That would be my takeaway on a neurological level, that we process music across the whole brain and not just one region. So, you know, when dementia does start to take hold, there's still that ability to respond and interact and engage with music. But I'd say start small. Think about the mood. What are you trying to do with the music? Are you trying to calm somebody? Are you trying to motivate? Are you just trying to have a moment of joy? Because actually, forget everything else. Music is there to make us feel good. So I would say start small, but if nothing else, try and find that moment of joy. So it might be the song that you always used to sing together in the mornings, or whatever it might be. Find that song, and don't feel you've got to get through the whole song. It might be 30 seconds. It might be just the chorus, and it might just be you humming it. You don't have to sing it, or it could be popping it on, you know, a device and having a dance together. Try and be playful with music. Music is there. We are playful creatures, and music really invites playfulness. And I think that's something we lose a lot when dementia kicks in. We get very serious about things because it is a very serious and impactful condition. But the more we can hold on to play, the more we hold on to our internal selves. So I'd say be playful with music, and don't feel that you've got to be any kind of musical expert. We are all musical beings. We all have a relationship with it. So try and tune into that a little bit.